What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of the 2019 F1 modded career mode, back today for round number 10 at the British Grand Prix. And we've had a break for a couple of weeks. I've been ill, so think of this as a little bit of a mid-season break, but now we're back into it. And yeah, we should be back to our normal schedule. So if you're enjoying this series, do make sure to leave a like. If we can hit 150 likes on this video, that would be great for the return. And yeah, hopefully you guys are excited for this. Now, as I said, it has been a while since the last race. So as a little bit of a refresher, this is what the championship is looking like going into round number 10. We have got Vettel leading the championship from Bottas and Hamilton, but it's very, very tight between the top three. And ourselves, in the Renault, we're sitting in P6, so it's looking pretty good. We're still ahead of Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull. And of course, it's only a couple of rounds ago that we actually took our first victory of the series. It's going to be difficult today because, as you can see on screen now, we have had a failed upgrade. We were promised an engine upgrade, but we were sold a dream. Unfortunately, it isn't here for this race. But as we look at the future upgrades, we will have it with us next time out, as well as another 2 major upgrades. So we're going to have 3 major upgrades in Germany, which mean, well, we're basically going to be the greatest car on the grid. I'm sure we won't be, but we can hope. But yeah, anyway, looking at the performance chart, we have really stagnated ever since Canada. Unfortunately, we've had failed upgrades, lack of resource points, and it's getting to a crucial point of the season now, so it's a little bit disappointing. We've really become a bit detached from the top 3, but we are still the 4th quickest car, ahead of Haas and Racing Point. And hopefully we can prove that this weekend. Now, you'll be able to see on screen that it is a wet British Grand Prix. And it's, well, the rain is set in for the race by the looks of it. So it's going to be a one-stop strategy by the looks of it on 2 sets of intermediate tyres. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, the first wet race of the season. So before we get started, let's take a look at the grid for this British Grand Prix. And it is the homeboy, Lewis Hamilton, on pole position ahead of Charles Leclerc, with their teammates Bottas and Vettel lining up on row 2. And the 2 Red Bulls sitting on row 3 as expected. Then we've got Magnussen and Perez in 7th and 8th ahead of Grosjean and Sainz, which means that there are no Renaults inside the top 10. Our teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, is the highest one, sat in P11. And as we go down the grid, we are still looking for ourselves, and you have to go all the way down to P15 to find us. It was a poor qualifying from ourselves in a dry qualifying, but as I knew the race was going to be wet, I put a wet setup on, so our pace was pretty much non-existent. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this isn't a bad track for us, and it was just about qualifying. Hopefully the wet conditions suit us more. Let's get into the race. Here we go then, getting stuck into race day, starting off with the formation lap. And yes, we are a long way back on that grid. You can just about see us in the background. But I've already really gone over the drivers' standings so far. We're sat in P6, and it's going to take one hell of a drive to stay in that position. Gasly and even Magnussen and Perez and Sainz all looking in good positions, better positions than ourselves to take points. But as we line up on the grid, of course, it is a wet race, so you never know, anything could happen as we slot into our grid position for the start of this British Grand Prix. Going now to the 5 red lights, try and get as little wheel spin off the start as possible, and away we go here at Silverstone. It's not a bad start as we are behind Lance Stroll, who seems to get a pretty good start, trying to get ahead of Daniel Ricciardo into turn 1. We brake very, very late, try and go as flat as possible, and it has made us a position on Lance Stroll, who has had to duck out of that move, but Stroll goes diving down the inside. What a move it is from him. He's gone all the way up into P12 by the looks of it, and we have had to settle back into P15, and well, we thought we'd made a position off the start, but Lance Stroll just dived one, and I respect that. Fair play to him. But yeah, we are still in P15, trying to look to get past Daniel Ricciardo in the Toro Rosso. But of course, it is going to be very, very difficult in these wet conditions. We're going to have to be careful, of course, not to go lunging down the inside too much, because that could end in a disaster. And now we've got a stationary car just in the middle of the track. You may have seen it there. It was our teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, who just seemed to stop in the middle of the track. That is a bizarre one. and we've actually managed to dispatch of Kvyat as a result. So we went all the way around the outside, and we've got a position on our teammate and on Daniel Kvyat, which has led us back into P13, and we are now sat behind Kimi Räikkönen in the Alfa Romeo Sauber. So we have made up a couple of positions on lap 1. In a little bit of different circumstances to what we expected, but still, we are not too far off the point-paying positions now. Räikkönen in 12th, and then we got Lance Stroll in 11th place. So brilliant, brilliant start from the Racing Point driver. And then there's a little bit of a gap to the points, but still, we've made up positions, and that is what we wanted on the opening lap of this Grand Prix. A little bit tentative as well on lap 1. We haven't probably shown our full pace. We're just sort of trying to get into these wet conditions. It was a dry qualifying and a dry practice. So these, my first few laps, or my first full lap, I should say, in the wet conditions. But we're going to take a look at the replay of the start from the front of the grid. So Charles Leclerc on the front row of the grid, something which he hasn't experienced too much this season, but he was all right off the line. And his teammate Sebastian Vettel, as you can see there, actually managed to get past Valtteri Bottas into P3. Hamilton was absolutely untouchable. You can see there, streaking off into the lead on the opening lap, as Bottas losing one position down into P4, with Pierre Gasly ahead of Max Verstappen in P5, with the Dutchman having to settle into P6. And we're also going to just take a look at what happened to our teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Just no words. No words. He just stopped on track. He hit an invisible wall. Oh, this game sometimes, man. Honestly, I don't know what to say. Unlucky Daniel Ricciardo. He's now in last place, but we gained 2 positions out of it, so I'm not too mad. But anyway, we're going back on board with ourselves on lap 3 of this Grand Prix. Usually, we'd have DRS active, but of course it's wet, so there is no DRS. But we are definitely closing in on Räikkönen, and this Maggots and Beckett section of the track is definitely our strongest. You can see now right up behind Kimi Räikkönen as we come through the final sector now on the Hangar Straight. And are we going to be able to make a move? No, we are not. We're just going to stick behind for the meantime. Lance Stroll as well really hasn't been making any inroads on the top 10. So Räikkönen, you could argue, being held up. We're going to go down the inside. Räikkönen, a big lockup, which gives us the opportunity to go down the inside. Räikkönen's going to try and fight it through the club section of corners. But as we come around the final corner, we are up into P12 in this Grand Prix. And made up 3 positions in the opening 3 laps. So really can't complain about that too much, as now we skip a couple more laps on to lap 5 through the old turn 1 at Copse, and now we come towards Maggots, Beckett and Chapel, and you'll be able to hopefully see here just how much we gain on Lance Stroll. We're very aggressive on the curbs in this section of track, but it really seems to be working. You know, usually in the wet conditions you get punished for going over the curbs, and the AI really aren't taking advantage, but ourselves just making sure to go for little steering movements, and it seems to be working. And we close up here on Lance Stroll into Stowe, and now as we come into Vale and Club, you can see that there's a big battle for P7 up ahead between Perez and Magnussen has got ahead of Sergio Perez, and well, that looks as if it could play into our favour, because there's a big 4-way battle there. And Stroll and ourselves look as if we're now closing onto that train of cars on lap 6 of the Grand Prix. But we're going now behind, onto the pack behind ourselves. And there is our first DNF of the Grand Prix. It's Antonio Giovinazzi, who I believe was running in about P15 or 16. But now it's going to be P20. He's not going to be finishing this Grand Prix. And the safety car has been deployed as a result of that. Bad luck for him. But I don't really know what that's going to do for us, to be honest. It's lap 6. It's a bit of an awkward time for a safety car. We've had a lot of safety cars in this series so far, and a couple of cars, Magnussen and Perez, we saw them battling just 1 lap ago. But the men that were sitting in P7 and P8 are now in the pit lane. There's also another car behind. I think it's one of the Toro Rossos is also into the pit lane. But anyway, that promotes us up into P10. And I'd imagine they'll be going on the 2-stop strategy. So if we stick to a 1-stopper, this could really play into our hands, hopefully. But anyway, the running order behind the safety car is as follows. So we've still got Lewis Hamilton leading his home Grand Prix in the wet conditions as he did back in 2008, and he's currently sat ahead of Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. So nothing's really changed there since the first lap of the Grand Prix, with Valtteri Bottas still sat in P4 ahead of Gasly and Verstappen. So the top 6 is exactly as it was. It's just behind that seems to have changed. So, sorry, no, it must have been Roman Grosjean that came into the pit lane. Apologies for that. So Kevin Magnussen is still out on the racetrack ahead of Carlos Sainz and then Lance Stroll in P9, followed by ourselves in 10th. So, yeah, Haas deciding to go for a different strategy, which is interesting. But as we now are on lap 8, it's not a very long safety car period at all. We've got the safety car in this lap. So, we're not even going. Okay, we've passed the safety car line, and arguably for the second time in this race, we've had a little bit of a glitch. So it's said that the safety car is coming in, and you can see here, we're going around the final corner. We've gone beyond the safety car line where we should have gone racing, and we are still going at about 60 or 70 miles per hour. And at this point I'm thinking, right, is this just going to go on and on? We're up to 80 miles an hour now, so this is doing us a load of good. But yeah, it just sort of went on and on for the entirety of lap 8. So we're now at Copse. So we're at the old turn 1, and all of a sudden we're going racing. This is interesting. So we're still on the yellow flags, but everybody's sped up. We're now going at pretty much full speed, but nobody can overtake each other. Very, very interesting safety car period. I don't really know what else to say. So at this moment, I'm thinking, right, I've just got to be as fast as I can without overtaking Lance Stroll. So we're pretty much back to full racing speed down. This is the strangest safety car restart of all time. But now as we go through Copse, we're ready to restart this race, and it looks as if we're going to try and get a good run on Lance Stroll, because we are now on green flag conditions, and we dive it down the inside of Stroll. Don't mind if I do, up into P9, and after waiting an entire lap pretty much to make that move, we've managed to execute it, and Stroll is now a long way behind. So we really did surprise him with that move down the inside. And now we're looking to Carlos Sainz in the McLaren next up for P8. And I very much think that we've got a chance of being the best of the rest in this Grand Prix in these wet conditions. So the safety car's helped us. It's bunched up the grid. And now, 10 laps in, we're really starting to find our rhythm on these intermediate tyres. And these wet conditions very much suiting the car. And we've now got Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly in the pit lane, which brings us up into a lofty P7. So we're on lap 11, so I'm not entirely sure whether Vettel and Gasly are going to go for a 2-stopper or a 1-stopper. But nonetheless, we're up a couple of positions, and it makes us look good for even a short amount of time. So I believe our planned pit stop is lap 13. So we've still got a couple of laps left in this stint, and the aim has got to be to try and get ahead of Carlos Sainz. The gap is now down to about 0.3 of a second. And we're really gaining on him in this opening section of track as we go into the village section and into the loop. Just very, very difficult to find the way past in these wet conditions. Of course, as I've mentioned before, no DRS is active. And as we go through the loop and Aintree, struggling for traction there off the exit of that corner. But you can see we're, well, very much we're not three abreast. I'm trying to think of the word. Line astern? I think I'm going to go with that one. We're line astern, the three of us. And we're led by Kevin Magnussen. Then it's Sainz. Then it is ourselves. So just a very difficult period of the race at the moment. You know, it's sort of a stick or twist. Do we go for a move on Carlos Sainz is the question. Well, up ahead, one man that is going for a move is Max Verstappen on lap 13. Valtteri Bottas was very, very slow on the previous couple of laps, which has given the Dutchman the opportunity to get ahead of Bottas, who is immediately now under pressure from Kevin Magnussen. So we've dropped back a little bit in the lap or so since we left the action. But Bottas now really holding up Kevin Magnussen and Carlos Sainz, which could bring us back into the frame. Hopefully it will. And now as we go through Maggots and Beckett's, you can see the gap that Max Verstappen is pulling out ahead. Of course, no DRS on at the hangar straight, but surely Kevin Magnussen will be looking for a route past as we go back on board with ourselves now. So less than a second behind Carlos Sainz. Not that really means a lot. And now we've got another safety car that's been deployed. For the second time in this race, we've got a safety car, and it has come right on the pit window. So everybody now diving into the pit lane. This will be our one and only tyre change of the afternoon. So yeah, the safety car not really coming at too bad a time whatsoever. It looks as if Lewis Hamilton was actually past the safety car, sorry, past the pit lane by the time the safety car came out, because he's carrying on for another lap. But this is going to be absolute carnage in the pit lane. Hopefully we don't get held up. Is it going to be a good stop for our one and only stop of the afternoon? We're held up a little bit, and now we've got our teammates behind us, but we do come out back in the position that we were before. So we're behind. Actually, no, we've ended up getting the position. We're ahead of Max Verstappen, so all the good work Verstappen did in getting ahead of Bottas has been wasted away by his pit crew. And he is now behind ourselves. What is going on in this Grand Prix? Everybody's made their pit stops, and we are up into P5 in this Grand Prix. Absolutely bizarre. But anyway, we've got Lewis Hamilton leading the way at the moment, but I don't believe he has made a pit stop. So, not sure what Mercedes are holding out for, whether they're trying to go an entire race on these intermediate tyres, but surely Charles Leclerc, who's sat in P2, is smelling blood right now, ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who has really got lucky there, because of course he was dropping off in pace. And then we've got Carlos Sainz sat in P4, who was ahead of us before, but he's managed to get the jump on Verstappen. Kevin Magnussen, those are probably the two big losers from the pit phase. And then we've got Lance Stroll in behind Carlos Sainz, and then it's Kevin Magnussen and Lando Norris, who somehow put himself into contention. That man, Sebastian Vettel, is a long way back in the order. Of course, he pitted a few laps before, so he's come in for another pit stop, which has landed him quite a way back, and the same goes for Pierre Gasly, who is outside of the top 10 by the looks of it. It's going to be a difficult afternoon for those two, as now we've got the safety car, which should be coming in this lap. Of course, we don't really know whether it is, if the previous safety car period is to be believed. But we're now ready to go green, and of course it is actually going to come in this lap. So we're preparing to resume racing here at Silverstone. We've got 10 laps left. We've gone for the dive down the inside of Carlos Sainz, as we tried on Lance Stroll at the first safety car restart, but we didn't quite manage to get that move done. And now we've got Max Verstappen very much on our tail, so we're looking behind us rather than in front of us here on lap 17 of the Grand Prix at the safety car restart. Verstappen tries to go down our inside at turn 1 at Abbey, but we do just about manage to hold the position. So well, we're in P5 with 10 laps left in the Grand Prix, and Carlos Sainz is harrying the gearbox of Valtteri Bottas for P3, so you've got to question whether the Mercedes man has still got a problem. And sure enough, as we skip later on into the lap, it looks as if Sainz is still going for the move, but unfortunately we can't really look ahead because Verstappen is absolutely on one at the moment. He's darting all over the place to try and get ahead of ourselves. Is he going to go for a move now into Vale? No, he isn't. He's going to stick behind for the meantime in that braking zone. And as we go through the final couple of corners at Club, this is a period of track, a section of track even, where we've really struggled to get traction. You can see there the back end is stepping out, so Verstappen is going to try and go side by side with us into turn 1. Max Verstappen gets the move done ahead of ourselves into P4 in this Grand Prix, because Lewis Hamilton, by the looks of it, has come into the pit lane. We'll pick up that one in a minute. We're going to stay on board with ourselves at the moment to see if we can get back past Max Verstappen, but it's going to be difficult. We held P4 momentarily in the Grand Prix, but now it's Verstappen who is surely going to go ahead and chase Carlos Sainz for a podium position in this Grand Prix, as we now brake. And Verstappen very, very slow on the entry there. May have had a little bit of an opportunity, but now as we go through Brooklands, it's just looking so difficult. The Red Bull Honda getting very, very good traction on the exit of the off the national pit straight. But now we're going to take a replay of exactly what happened. So Lewis Hamilton, who was leading the Grand Prix, was actually under pressure from Charles Leclerc, who was of course on the fresher tyres. But there you can see Lewis Hamilton diving into the pit lane from the lead of this Grand Prix with just about 8 laps left. Absolutely bizarre. Don't know what Mercedes were doing, but he emerged in, well, 19th and last position. So a real tactical blunder there from the Mercedes team, and that is how far he is from the next car, who it looks like that is Robert Kubica. He is a hell of a long way behind everybody, and there you can see the leader, Charles Leclerc, for this Grand Prix has got a pretty healthy lead now. So pretty much as expected, Max Verstappen now honing in on Carlos Sainz for that podium position, the final podium position. And as they go into Cops, it looks as if Verstappen's going to go down the inside, but Sainz is trying to fight it. He's still there on the outside as they go into Vale in the final complex of corners. But is Verstappen going to go around the outside here at Vale? No, he's going to have to stick behind for the meantime. We've got a brilliant view of this battle behind as they go into the final corner, still side by side. The fans are going to be loving this, but it looks as if Verstappen has just about prevailed in P3 ahead of Sainz, and Sainz is out of position there through turn 1, and we're going to try and take advantage. We're now side by side with the Spaniard, a man that we've had several battles with already this season, almost touching there into the first couple of corners, and now we go through the loop and into Aintree, but we're going to have to sit behind in P5. Lance Stroll, who's in P6, has very much closed in on us as well. But this is a brilliant conclusion to the British Grand Prix, and yeah, we're just going to sit behind Sainz for the meantime. We've still got quite a few laps, 6 laps it is, to get past the Spaniard. I think it's going to be too much of an ask to get ahead of Verstappen. Our opportunity for that has been and gone. But P4 after starting in P15 would be quite special, and now we're trying to get closer and closer to Carlos Sainz, but it's just not going to work, I don't think. And yeah, it's just so difficult to get past on this wet track. Although we just have a lot of confidence at the moment, so you never know in these final 6 laps of the Grand Prix. Once again closing it up in Maggots and Beckett's, but as we now go on to the Hangar Straight, is it going to be, are we going to be close enough to try and make a move? No, it doesn't look like we are. Maybe fake one down the inside. No, we're just going to sit behind for the meantime and possibly give us an opportunity in to Vale. No, we're just still too far behind at the moment, and Verstappen already getting quite a gap as we get a little bit drifty in the final couple of corners. But you know, this is F1, it's not rally driving, so we'll have to contain ourselves as we now go on to lap 22 of this British Grand Prix. Still trying to chase down Carlos Sainz. What a battle this has been. Going to stay on board for a little bit longer just to see whether we can make any moves as we go through Village and the Loop. Now this is a corner we very, very much struggle with, even in the dry, to try and set ourselves up with an overtaking move, but we've taken that one very, very nicely. Trying to use our ERS wisely as well. You know, we're never going to use all of it in the wet conditions. It would be foolish to go on the high ERS modes for all of the corners. But we're going on the hot lap ERS to hopefully give us a good exit here off Brooklands and propel ourselves on to the national pit straight. Of course, the old start finish line now as we go past it and into Cops. Are we going to be close enough to make a move? No, again, we're just going to have to sit behind. Frustrating, I think, is the word for that. But now we're going to take a look at exactly what is happening behind us. And there is a battle for P6 just behind ourselves. And it is, yes, Sebastian Vettel going down the inside of Lance Stroll. They're side by side. But pretty easy move there for the German. And I believe, yes, he was the championship leader before this race. It doesn't look like he will be once the race is concluded. But Sebastian Vettel moves up to P6 after what's been a difficult British Grand Prix for himself. Of course, he won the real-life 2018 British Grand Prix, but he's not going to be winning the one today, although he is in P5 behind ourselves, and he senses a P4 might be on the cards. Is he going to try and go? Oh, he tried to go for an overtake there through Maggots and Beckett's, but it very, very much backfired, and looks as if he's lost too much momentum now. Of course, we're on lap 25 of 26, so just over 1 lap left in this Grand Prix. We're going to stay on board right to the end of this British Grand Prix to see whether we can get past Carlos Sainz or whether we're going to have to settle for P5. We've decided to just go for the medium ERS modes in the final couple of laps, and we found that it's actually given us a lot more grip on the exit of corners, you know, minimising the wheel spin, and we're almost pushing Carlos Sainz through this final complex of corners. Surely we're going to find a way past in the final lap of the Grand Prix. We're going to be marginal on fuel. The ERS we're going to be able to use as much as we want on the straights. We're on overtake ERS now to give us as much straight line speed as possible, and now we go back down to mediums, try and give us good traction now as we go through Village and the loop. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a corner where we really struggle to get good traction out of, once again on the opposite lock. But as we now go on to the Wellington straight, are we going to be able to make a move on Carlos Sainz for P4 in this Grand Prix? We're going to chuck one down the inside, are we? Oh, we're just too far back by the looks of it, and we can't make a move. Of course, we've got to be wary of Sebastian Vettel, who's of course sat in P6. We don't want him to be making a move on ourselves, and it's just still sat behind Carlos Sainz. I am bored of staring at the back of that McLaren. As now we go through Cops for the final time. This is surely going to be our best chance of a move. Closing up through Maggots and Beckett's and having a go one last time on the Hangar straight. So we go through Maggots, Beckett's, and now through Chapel. Just look at how close we are to Carlos Sainz. You can't get any closer than that. As we follow him through this section for the last time. Are we going to pull out of his slipstream and try for an overtake? No, we just don't seem to be able to have the pace, but we're going to go for one last dive down the inside as Charles Leclerc wins the British Grand Prix. We get up ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's still on our outside. Are we going to be able to make this move stick through the final couple of corners? That's all we've got to try and persevere through, and we are ahead of Carlos Sainz. What a final lap of this Grand Prix. And it is P4 for ourselves. We started in 15th. We've gained 11 positions to take P4 for this Grand Prix. What a race that was. Brilliant stuff. And Charles Leclerc, there is your race winner. So he was pretty much handed it on a plate, you could say, by Lewis Hamilton. But still, a very good drive from the Monegasque driver. And another victory for Ferrari. There is ourselves. I'm very happy with P4 in that Grand Prix. Really couldn't have gone any better. But there's the man who's taken victory this afternoon ahead of Bottas and Verstappen. You know, we've seen Bottas and we've seen Verstappen throughout the course of this race. We had chances to overtake both of them. In fact, we were ahead of Max Verstappen at a time. But I can't complain at P4. Currently, we don't really have the pace to be challenging those lot. But hopefully in future rounds we can do so. There is your final race positions. So ourselves, we started in 15th. Carlos Sainz started in 10th, and he's taken P5 in the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton could only make his way up to P12 despite starting on pole position, so no points for him this afternoon. And our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, after hitting that interesting invisible wall on lap 1, he can only manage P15, so no points for him on the other side of the garage. Just the one DNF, that was Antonio Giovinazzi. No idea why we got the other safety car, but it really did hand us that P4 in the Grand Prix, so I'm not complaining. In terms of the driver's standings, we hold on to P6. Leclerc has moved ahead of Verstappen, but both of them have closed up to the top 3. So Valtteri Bottas takes the championship lead. Probably not something you'd thought you'd be hearing in this series, but he is now ahead of Sebastian Vettel. And Mercedes still leading the way in the constructor standings, with Renault, ourselves, still just about sat in P4, ahead of Haas and Racing Point. But guys, if you've enjoyed the return of the 2019 modded career mode, do make sure to leave a like down below. Tune in next time for the German Grand Prix, where we have got bags of upgrades. And hopefully we can challenge for a good result. But until next time, guys, do take care. Bye-bye.